Hi everyone. Daniel Bowcock's my name. My business is Safe Industries Australia. We are working right throughout Australia. We have clients in large studs, small studs, racing trainers, race clubs, and also a lot of smaller other different sort of industries. But our main focus is in the thoroughbred and in the agricultural industry. Um, So the main thing just quickly today, wanted to just get through work on safety and what you guys should be doing. Um, the basic facts is the government has passed legislation and the law says that you should have, if you're running a business, you should have work health and safety in place. And that means whether you're a sole operator or you hire 10 people or you employ 50 people or 1,000 people, everyone should have a work health and safety system in place. And the reason why we want to do this is twofold. One, obviously, the first one for us and for most of the country is we don't want people injured in the workplace anymore. We want them to go home to their families at the end of the day. So that's obviously the priority for everyone. And you can see just quickly, if you can see the industry stats, the problem with the agricultural industry and the horse industry, it's one of the worst industries to work in for injuries and fatalities. So, which is a bit of a shame on our industry, and we need to get much better at that. It's more dangerous to work in agriculture than it is to work in an underground mining site. So, we need to get better at this. The main things and work on safety, I could talk about it for hours, but I haven't got that long today. So, the main thing that you guys need to be ticking off is just do the basics. Everybody gets a bit bogged down with, work on safety, I haven't got the time. And so they put their head in the sand. What we've found with Safe Work Australia is if you have a go, they will help you out. If you put your head in the sand, then they will roll their sleeves up and make an example of you. So if you take anything away from today, I would suggest is just do something in the work health and safety for your business. Start somewhere, do something, and you're already then way down the track of mitigating any serious prosecutions and if you have a serious injury or accident. So the first step, we work from the basics. So the first thing is get a system in place, which means get some work health and safety policies in place and some procedures. The procedures are the important one, which is the focus is how do you go safely about driving a tractor, a quad bike, handling a horse, catching a foal, handling a stallion in the stallion barn. Have you got safety procedures in place for those? And you need a paper trail of that. You need it written down somewhere so that we know that you have evidence of that. Once you have those policies and procedures drafted and whatnot, then you do formal inductions. So you induct anybody that's going to be working for you or on your place, you induct them through those policies and procedures. So you tick the box to say, we've identified and we've told them what the hazards are and here are the safety procedures. The other one that a lot of people miss out and we're finding a lot of prosecutions around is contractors. The problem with a contractor is as soon as they come on your place, they're under your work health and safety guidelines. So you have a duty of care to ensure their health and safety while they're on your site. How it's supposed to work, the contractor should have their own work health and safety, and you ask for a copy of that and some written evidence to show that they're going to do their job safely and that any staff they bring with them have been inducted through that and they're going to do their job safely. The problem is we're finding a lot of contractors, I haven't found a farrier yet with work health and safety. So there's lots of contractors coming onto your place and a fencing contractor, a spray contractor, the person comes and handles the weanlings during the year. All these people should have their own work health and safety if they're running their own business. If they don't, then you need to be doing something to check off that they're going to do their job safely. So our suggestion always is if they haven't got their own, then you induct them through your own work health and safety and you can tick that box. There's been a lot around injury reporting and incident management. I think most people are very well on top of that because you've got the insurance and workers' comp and all that. So, but that's obviously a very important one, that you must be reporting injuries, you must be recording injuries, and doing that. First aid is always one sometimes is missed out on. It doesn't cost a lot to put a few first aid boxes around your work site and make sure everybody knows where they are and make sure that they're kept up to date. If you have a reasonable number of people and you're a bit out of town and a bit more remote, or you know that it's going to take a fair while to get an emergency service to you in a first aid emergency, then it is worthwhile getting some of your staff or somebody on the place with some first aid training so that they're certified and they can offer some first aid while you're still waiting for emergency services. Fire and emergency procedures, so having some fire extinguishers actually in the workplace or fire hose, having some sort of emergency plan of what you're going to do if a bushfire starts rumbling over the top of your property. Where are you going to move the horses to? Where are the safe spots? What's the system? So having that in place is very important. You should have some fire and emergency stuff through your work on safety inductions and have a plan. Working alone is one of the biggest killers in the agricultural industry and horse industry. And we've done it for so many years that people are working on their own all the time, which is fine because you have to work on your own a lot of the time. But what we need you to change in your workplace is you have to have a system in place where you can check on those people working alone. So if you send a guy out to plough the back paddock all day and he gets out of the tractor at 9 o'clock in the morning to pull something out from under the plough collapses on him, when are you going to find that person? More than likely you won't find him until he doesn't come home to dinner and his wife rings you and says Bob hasn't arrived home. So you need to have a plan in place, a check system during the day. Someone has to be calling him up on a two-way phone or driving by and seeing that he's okay during the day, because if you can find him and he's only been under the plough for 2 hours compared to him being under the plough for 8 hours, then you probably save his life. You must get better at this and working alone, like night watch. We've still got a lot of studs, one person on at night watch. When will you find out if that person's been injured during the night? Is there any check system? So we have a lot of studs are actually talking to each other during the night and have a proper procedure in place that they check in each hour with each other. And if they don't hear from them, they can ring someone on the stud to say, go and check your night watch person. Hazard warnings and PPE signage. One of the greatest things for getting the message across about work on safety is some warning signage. Having some PPE signage and warning signage in your workplace. You've got a workshop, put some signs up on the walls telling people to wear their eye protection, their hearing protection. If it's down at near where all the vet chemicals are kept, PPE about wearing gloves, reading safety data sheets, all those sorts of things. It's a great way and a very simple, cheap way to get that information across. So just quickly, PCBU, this is the new term in work health and safety legislation, which means person conducting a business or undertaking. The main thing you're trying to do is you have to identify what the hazards are in your workplace. You have to ensure that they're aware of those hazards and tell them what are the safety controls to reduce the risk of the hazard. So it's pretty simple. Workers should be inducted through the policies, as we said. A record of this induction, very important that you have some sort of written or digital record of this induction so that you can go back on that. And records is a bit like tax. You should be keeping anything that you do work on safety wise, you should be keeping for 7 years as a record. And that's all I've got. I've made it very quick and short. I hope that was enough information. And if you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Thanks very much, Daniel. Really appreciate your time. Your presentations are always very, very clear and to the point, which we love that. Do the stats recorded on incidents, do they have an effect on workers' comp fees? So I know that some other industries, they have that structure in place and it makes it quite expensive when you list the category.
there's definitely a correlation now to workers' common insurance, particularly. If you can show you've got a good work health and safety in place, that should help you negotiate better insurance terms.
Right. And the other question I have here is business requirements by the government. So I suppose you could say there's an equal importance. I mean, we've always understood we need to have a work health safety plan, but at the moment, you know, having a COVID plan for your business, I suppose they're sort of hand in hand. But you know, is there, there's regulation there, but is there actual I suppose policing around that, or is it you wait for something to happen and then you get into a smack on the wrist?
I think it's the COVID is a funny one because it's obviously very separate to the work health and safety in one respect, and it's governed by the government bodies and the health department and such that govern those requirements. The thing though that, and what I've worked with my clients is to have at least we've put in what we call a coronavirus policy, which is not specifically just COVID, because coronaviruses are things like the flu, can be a whole heap of other different viruses. So we've worked with more in that scope to say that because any of those viruses are a hazard to your workplace, and so therefore if it's a hazard, then you must identify that hazard and put in some safety controls to reduce the risk of it. So that's how we've approached it. As in the policing side of it, I think that is more through the health department side of things, that they're looking at that. So, but, you know, highly recommended if you haven't got some sort of COVID policy in place, coronavirus policy, and definitely having some signage up around the workplace about COVID, about hygiene, hand cleaning, distancing, social distancing, all that should be in your workplace. And there's lots of resources. If you go on the internet, you'll find it in your government bodies, and they'll link it through the Safe Work Australia. There's plenty of stuff about COVID and what should have in place, and plenty of material there.